Palo Alto grew up along the railways, both the Southern Pacific Railroad, which ultimately became Caltrain, and later Interurban Rail, connecting Stanford with San Jose. In the early days, apartments and boarding houses were clustered along the rail route in an early example of what we now call transit-oriented development. Then in the prosperous post-war decade, as Stanford Research Park, Town and Country Village, and Stanford Shopping Center were built, new schools opened to serve a surge of over 5,000 students. By the 1950s, concerns about traffic and parking were mounting, and ambitious infrastructure projects began to change the nature of our community. In the 1970s, our urban footprint stopped expanding, but the number of jobs in the city kept growing, and by the end of the decade, Palo Alto arrived at the jobs-housing imbalance we have today, almost 3 jobs for every employed resident. The current comp plan acknowledges that traffic congestion has been an ongoing issue in Palo Alto. The number one goal in the transportation element is less reliance on single-occupant vehicles, and there are more than 50 policies and programs that emphasize walking, biking, transit, and carpools. Over the past 10 years, we've made real progress. In 2000, 75% of Palo Altans drove to work alone, but today, that number has dropped to 65%. For Santa Clara County as a whole, the number hardly budged over the same time period. Of course, changes in technology mean more people are able to work from home and telecommute today. Palo Alto's ambitious Safe Routes to School projects have resulted in a steady increase in kids walking and rolling to school every year since 2001. And Caltrain ridership shot up after baby bullet service started in 2004. Still, while we may be driving less today than when the current comp plan was adopted, traffic congestion remains a serious concern and is projected to get worse as the region's economy continues to grow. Increased congestion means increased greenhouse gas emissions. Transportation sources are by far the single largest contributor of local greenhouse gas emissions. The city is already taking steps to address congestion with a 3-pronged approach to reducing traffic and parking demand downtown and in the surrounding neighborhoods. These efforts include transportation demand management initiatives to dramatically reduce Palo Alto's single-occupant vehicle traffic, parking supply initiatives, including smart parking garages, valet parking, and satellite parking, and a residential preferential parking program, which will soon be starting a pilot phase in the neighborhoods around downtown. In addition, the city is committed to analyzing other possible solutions through the comp plan and sustainability climate action plan processes. We'll need to make some choices about how seniors, school kids, workers, and all of us get around Palo Alto. In updating the comp plan, we need to explore improvements along 3 major transportation corridors. Should the city proactively pursue the possibility of undergrounding a segment of the Caltrain tracks south of California Avenue Station? Are there any circumstances under which bus rapid transit along El Camino Real could be a part of our transportation future? And what about improvements along Page Mill Road and the Oregon Expressway, as envisioned in the county's Expressway 2040 plan? As we update the comp plan, we also need to consider amplifying the focus on bikeable, walkable neighborhoods and incorporating the extensive set of facilities called for in the 2012 Bicycle and Pedestrian Transportation Plan. And we need to reflect rapidly evolving transportation changes brought about by technology. Ride-sharing companies like Uber and Lyft, driverless cars, and even mobility-as-service solutions like those now being piloted in Europe. Even taking these innovations into account, we'll still likely need to consider additional requirements for new development to minimize new car trips. And we'll also need to think about beefing up existing policies and programs that encourage residents and workers to bike, walk, carpool, and take transit more often. We know there will be more people living and working here in 2030. Today is your chance to weigh in on important questions about transportation and mobility over the next 15 years. What innovations will maintain the treasured quality and livability of Palo Alto's neighborhoods? Thinking about the city's major corridors, including Caltrain, are you satisfied with these corridors now? How should they look and function in 2030? And finally, let's get a little personal. We got some great ideas from our online survey in Open City Hall, and we want to add your ideas into the mix. What would motivate or enable you to drive less, whether for work or daily errands? Safer bike paths? More frequent transit service? Restricted parking? We look forward to hearing your ideas about 21st century mobility in Palo Alto.